old to the children now grown, yearning and remembering the kindness that the beggars did for them. Each beggar comes back and says, before I gave you a bracha, you should be like me, now I'm giving it to you as a gift. And then each beggar explains how his seeming defect is really a disguise for an amazing power and ability. Right? The beggar of the fourth day has a crooked neck, and he explains to them that he is an expert musician. He can imitate any and every sort of sound in the world. He's a ventriloquist extraordinaire. He can throw his voice. Nobody will hear him. And as part of the proof, he tells them a story of two countries which are 1,000 miles apart, and at night the people in those countries cry piteously. Men, women, and children, they all cry. The way the Rabbi puts it, and if there would be a stone there, the stone would melt from its own tears. That's how sad and heartrending the crying is. And the people that the beggar with the crooked neck is talking to, right, ask him, well, what's the cause? What's the source of that crying? And he tells them that there's a couple in the world, two birds, only one of a kind, and they got lost and separated from one another. And he went looking for her, and she went looking for him, and they got more and more lost, and they were afraid that they could never find one another. So each one made a nest, one near one city, one near the other city. And at night, each of the birds cries because it can't find its mate. And it's impossible to be in their presence without crying oneself. But in the daytime, the joy at each of those nests is also something that's overwhelming. And the joy there is because all the other birds come to the he and to the she, that's the way the Rabbi puts it in the story, and comforts them and says, don't worry, you'll find the other one. You'll find them. Now here the Rebbe doesn't explain how. But the Rebbe does explain, and look at the Quran, he says that sometimes shidduchim are very hard to make because the two of them are diametrically opposed. They're thousands of miles apart. And the way to make this shidduch, the Rebbe said, is through dat. Right? The word dat, right? And probably everybody here has some familiarity with the Sfirot. Right? Dat is quasi-Sfira. Dat is awareness, knowledge, consciousness. The Rebbe says that the way to make a shidduch is through learning Torah from tzaddikim, taking the teachings of tzaddikim, one teaching at a time, or part of a teaching at a time, and making it into dat. That is to say, actualizing, living by what the tzaddikim say. What does that mean? What does it mean? Tzaddik teaches me something, how do I live by it? We're all born in the world. One of the women here mentioned that she feels that other people are more worthy, but even so they're not married. All of the married people that you know, none of them is worthy of being married. No one is worthy of being married. Right? Every human being is forever imperfect. Right? It's not a question of being worthy or not worthy. you're fine just the way you are. You could be better, right? And when you're better, you'll be fine then too, and still be able to be better, right? No, there's always hope. That Hashem is always recreating the world. That's why there's always hope and never despair. But being married or not married has nothing to do with how worthy one person is. Being married or unmarried has to do with connecting. Right? And when the Rabbi talks about that is always this idea of connecting. And connecting not just in an ordinary fashion, but connecting even things which are totally opposite. There's nothing more opposite than male and female. Right? Even married people will tell you that. And what we have to do in order to give ourselves a better chance, right, is to seek out what a tzaddik teaches and figure out how to live according to what they teach. In all areas of life, how our approach to money, our approach to interpersonal relations, our approach to food, to eating, our approach to everything. That's what that is. That is drawing out of ourselves the ability to connect with the world around us, with people and others who inhabit the planet and the things that people do. Right? On one hand, I said right away, I don't know. I could not possibly tell you why you are not married and someone else is married. There are plenty of jerks and idiots who are married. Right? Are they more worthy? Right, absolutely. Right? And there are plenty of wonderful people who are not married. Right? All the people in this room are not married. Right? But what's the secret? What makes it so hard? What makes it so hard is, are we willing, are we able to take the chance as we are, as imperfect as we are, as unworthy as we may feel, and let ourselves connect in a serious way, in a fully committed way, to somebody who's just as imperfect. And the truth is, as we mentioned before, there are a lot of bad marriages too. And marriage is not, some people may live in a fairy tale and get married and live happily ever after. Most people get married and try to figure out what it is that they got themselves into. Right? And how can they, and marriage is hard work. Right? I have a friend, a Kohen, mid-50s, maybe closer to 60. He says, right now, I'm a bocher. And I know when I get married, right, I'll go from having bocher problems to having married man problems. But those are the problems I want to have. Right? And then part of having that is saying, well, I have problems like this, I'm willing to have problems like that. Right? It's a risk. Right? Once upon a time, choices might have been simpler and easier. Right? And now choices may be more limited. But the same essential question is, are you willing to take a risk? Right? Are you brave enough to say to some stranger, okay, I'll spend the rest of my life with you? You can never be sure. Right? There was a joke, a cartoon in the New Yorker, right? You don't really know someone until you divorce them.